So let's get into it. Let's talk about the silent struggle of the successful professional. A lot of people do not realize what it means to be a successful professional in this environment and what's going on right now. What happens with a lot of people is they are possessing high level titles and strong salaries, but feeling cash poor. You might be doing a lot, you might have the title, they might say you make great money, but you might not feel that it is where you really should be because you feel cash poor, and the burden of being the first and only in your circle or your family to build substantial wealth. This was a thing for me and Aisha as we built our business out, and we were the first and only people in our family that had ever done something kind of a business model that was successful, and it really caused a lot of strain on some of our relationships, and that puts a lot of pressure on you as a person because of the fact that you're the first and really the one that's done this kind of or done successful in life or successful in your business or your career, and it kind of comes out to it can be a problem, it can cause a little bit of stress. And then you get to realize that if you stop working tomorrow, the family machine stops shortly after because your income is decent enough that or good. And if you stop working, then it will put a stress or a strain on your family because you support and help a lot of people in your family. And that can be another stress, especially when you're a working professional. And at the end of the day, when you are a working professional, you realize you are trading high level time for high level money. It's still just a trade. It is still working, no matter how you look at it. It is not freedom. It doesn't allow you to do the things you want. A lot of times, if you make really good money or you're on a salary, then you are on call for your job whenever it needs you. And that definitely cuts into your freedom because when you're needed, you're needed. So that can be a lot for a lot of people. So I'm going to talk a little bit about me and Aisha and what we have done. We're 26 years of trench work versus internet hype. So when you get on these calls, there's a lot of people that show their Ferraris and how they've done all this stuff, and we are not that. My name is Art. This is my wife Aisha. We have a combined 26 years of real estate experience across several market cycles. So we've been in all kinds of market cycles. Been when the market is going up, when the market is going down, when there have been extremely good markets, and when there have been extremely tough markets. So we've seen it all. Our first year of doing our real estate business, our actual quick term business, what we do now, that first year we did about $870,000 in profit using the strategy that I'm going to talk to you about tonight. Now we average about $2 million or more a year. Last year we did a little bit above $2 million. And this is all from buying and selling houses. This does not deal with our commercial business. This is strictly from buying and selling houses. So we're going to talk about what that business looks like. And then I'll talk to you about the ulterior motive. So as I talk to you and train you about this strategy and what we do, we want you to build a successful single family real estate business because we want to allow you to join us as future partners for commercial properties and commercial investments. We invest with a lot of people that learn our program. They make some good money, and then they can take some of that money and put it into commercial real estate with us, and we buy as a group. So we have a vested interest. I say all that to say we have a vested interest in seeing you be successful because the more successful you are, the more successful you are, the more likely you are to invest with us in commercial properties. Last thing is transparency. If ever asked, we share our HUD ones and our failures because if you think we made $870,000 and did not take some setbacks and some things that were unexpected, that is not the case at all. In fact, I always tell the $40,000 hospital mistake. We bought a hospital at one point and we did not know what we were doing with it. We were just buying properties because it made sense to buy properties, bought a hospital. And yes, it was an abandoned or empty hospital. And it was everything that you would think of in a scary movie. We went through the building, did all this stuff and kept it. We thought we were going to just sell it to somebody because it's a hospital. Who wouldn't want a hospital? We ended up selling it for a $40,000 loss. And that was just one of the things where we learned to stay in our lane and do what makes sense for us. Okay. Professionalism beats the grind every time. A lot of people, when they get into real estate, they are used to the grind or they're told that they need to do the grind. What is the grind? The grind is the hustle. It's cold calling, hanging signs, begging for deals. It's unscalable and it's undignified. It's stuff that you don't want to do. It feels very low. I don't want to say low budget, but it feels very low level because you're doing stuff where you're trying to convince people to sell you their house, and that can be a struggle for a lot of people. What we do is more of a factory. It is transaction engineering where data driven systems bring the deal to you. We do not call people and look for deals. They bring deals to us. We have a very specific way that the seller, the exact person that we want to talk to, brings us the deal. And not just brings us a deal, but these are sellers that have high equity in their property. These are sellers that are motivated to sell, and you end up getting motivated equity, which is the number one thing you can have in this business. Motivated equity is going to make you wealthy. Okay. We focus on boring predictability over sexy high risk projects. So when you hear a lot of people talk about real estate, they will talk about all these different things. They do all this crazy stuff. Our business is very simple. You are going to market, people are going to call you, you are going to negotiate with those people, you're going to come to an agreement, buy the house, and you buy it for less than it is worth now, not what it's worth fixed up, and you are going to sell that property for what it is worth now or slightly more. And it will allow you to make money, but it is boring. It is not something that's exciting, but it makes really good money and it will take care of you and it can replace your income if that is your desire. Biggest thing is how to run a high revenue business in just 8 to 10 hours per week. Once you have this business set up, there is a little bit of legwork involved in setting it up. Once you have this set up, you can run this entire business in about 8 to 10 hours per week. And that is pretty generous because it usually will not take you that long when you're starting off. Once you get going kind of full steam, you can run this in 8 to 10 hours per week. It is very much a conveyor belt of business and what to do. And that's what you want. You want something that is boring, not exciting, but it makes really good money. Why you don't need more information. Let's talk about this because this comes up all the time. Most professionals have spent somewhere between 5 and 75,000 on courses that left them abandoned. I don't know if that's any of you all. I hope it's not. But you get into a course, they tell you how great the course is. They tell you they're going to do all of this stuff. You're going to be able to do all these deals. You get into the course, it's like 6 videos that are an hour long. They don't really tell you how to do the business. They just explain a bunch of different strategies. The strategies all sound great. And they tell you that if you bring them a deal, they'll finance it or something like that. That is more information. That is what holds a lot of people back because they get frustrated when they don't see the information actually turn into a check. This is industry training. When you learn 16 ways to do a deal, it creates paralysis by analysis. And what that means is you learn all these different strategies. They all sound great. You say, okay, I'm going to do it. And you're not really clear on what exactly to do with each one. You end up combining strategies or not knowing which way to go. And it just ends up spinning you in a circle. You feel lost and you don't actually get anywhere with what you're trying to do. That's what happens when you do industry training. What we do is niche training. It is one proven process. It is one thing. We don't tell you 16 ways to buy property. We don't tell you 16 ways to find deals. We don't tell you 20 ways to sell the property. There's one way to sell, one way to buy, and one way to finance. And with that, you can make consistent money. And the reason I say that is because a lot of the problems that come up with real estate or any business, you won't have because you're not trying to change a lot of stuff. When you're trying to do a lot of different strategies, you have a tendency to kind of work each strategy or figure out as you're going. So you'll change strategies in the middle of a deal. How many of you all have done that? Has anybody ever been doing a deal and then halfway through the deal you decided to do a rental instead of a flip, or you decided to make it into a group home and something like that instead of what you were normally going to do? That's what happens a lot of times, and it is dangerous because you don't look at everything that you need to see to make the best decision. You're changing strategies to kind of fit the mold of what you're doing. We're going to talk to you about moving from being a consumer of information to an executor of transactions. You don't need a ton of information to get started in this business. In fact, the less information you have, the more success you're probably going to get. Because when you have too much information, you start to feel you're smart. I had a guy that talked to me and he said, I've gone through almost every course there is. I know how to do real estate in every kind of way. I've looked at all kinds of videos. And my first question was to him was, how many deals have you done? And he said, oh, I haven't done anything yet. And my point was, why do all the training and never do the deal? That's because he learned too many strategies. And I want to get you away from that. Let's talk about this. Why predictability is the ultimate luxury. And this is very true. I always use the McDonald's analogy. Let me tell you the McDonald's analogy. A consistent recipe beats a gourmet project every time. McDonald's, have you ever gone to a really nice steakhouse? And I mean, the place is beautiful. It's got ambiance, it's got a $75 steak, it's got great, everything is top tier. That company, as nice as it is, does not make nearly the money McDonald's does. Now, why is that? It's because McDonald's does not give you a ton of options. McDonald's does not give you 16 different ways you can do something. They are not very focused on the individual. They are focused on the process. And when you learn to focus on the process, you make more money. Same thing with real estate. A lot of people get into real estate and they want to make these really nice houses. They want to rehab a house and make it beautiful and fix it up and do all of this stuff to it. That's not where the money is at. The money is at in the process of finding the property, buying the property, and selling the property. Those are the 3 points you can make money from with real estate. There's nothing left other than that. Finding the property, buying the property, and making money from it when you sell the property. Everything else is fluff. Fixing the property up, going over there and arguing and negotiating with tenants is fluff. All of that stuff is fluff. That's not what you're looking for. You want to be like McDonald's. Treating houses like a commodity on a conveyor belt rather than a one-off emotional project. I see this a lot with investors when they get into rehabs and everything else. Has anybody here done a rehab before? Have you done a rehab or got into a project and started doing a project and done a rehab? This is very common. You fall in love with the rehab. You want it to look perfect because it becomes your baby. It's your house that you put all this time and effort and energy into, and you sell it. And the payday is okay, but it's not really what you wanted. But at the same time, you made it beautiful. I want you to get away from that. I want you to treat houses like a commodity. If you've seen one 3 bedroom house, you've seen all the 3 bedroom houses. They're 3 bedrooms. They can't be that different. Treat every house as a commodity on a conveyor belt rather than a one-off project. You will make more money. Okay. Why we buy on Friday and look to sell on Monday? It's because velocity is the key to wealth. The faster and easier you can make your process so that you can move more properties in and out, you will make more money. I've had rehabbers, people that do absolutely gorgeous work on rehabs, and they've gotten the property and they've fixed it up over 6 months, and then they're selling it and they might make $100,000. In that same time, I might have done 12 properties. And it's just because we go for velocity. And on each property, we're making 30 to 50 to $70,000, and we might have made 4 times what they made, and we never saw the property. We never physically saw the property. I never went to Home Depot or Lowe's or any of that stuff to actually fix the property up. That is not where the money is at. Get in and get out and control the deal. Those are the 3 things. You want to standardize your business so it functions with or without your physical presence. What if I told you could do this business and you could make $1 million a year? The only trade-off was you had to work 7 days a week and you had to work about 9 hours a day. That would be great, the money, but it would kill your time and your freedom. The only way to get around that kind of schedule and everything else, especially if you have a job, is by standardizing your business so it can function without you. And that's what we teach. We teach how to build a business that I can get offers made, I can get marketing out, I can do everything without me physically having to be there, and my team can let me know. It allows me to travel, it allows me to do a lot of stuff that does not require me to be at the business. Now, does that mean I can ignore the business and never show up? No, not at all. But it does allow me to move around and have a lot more freedom, and it gives you options that you did not have before. What you need to learn in this business is that you want to stop chasing people and start attracting facts. Let me break this down for you. Okay. Motivation is an emotional feeling. You know how people tell you look for motivated sellers. How many of you all have heard look for motivated sellers when you're talking to, training or something like that? They always say look for motivated sellers. I don't believe you should look for motivated sellers. Motivation is a feeling. That's like me telling you to look for happy people. People can look happy on the outside and be depressed on the inside. It is hard. There's no list or anything else that's going to give you the emotion of motivation. You want to find equity. Equity is a mathematical fact. Either they have it or they don't have it. What is equity? The house is worth $100,000. I owe $20,000 on it. It has $80,000 in equity. That is a mathematical fact. We can search that. We can find all the houses in an area that have equity and we can identify them. We use what's called a zip code algorithm, and it helps us identify where high profit and low risk deals are at. Now, what does that look like? What does that mean where the deals are at? If you've ever started looking for property, I heard somebody give absolutely horrible advice. I won't say horrible, I'll say difficult advice. I had a person tell me that they start looking for properties. They ask their realtor, where are the hot areas at? That is an opinion. That just because a realtor knows there's a couple of properties that sold in that market does not make it hot. We use actual math. There's a line that Jay-Z uses: men lie, women lie, numbers don't. We use actual numbers to prove where, not only where there are properties with equity, but where people are actively trying to buy, so we know they will sell quickly. And at the same time, we want to identify sellers that have the type of situation where they're likely to want to sell to us. That does not mean motivation. We're not looking for pre-foreclosures or foreclosures. We're not looking for tax liens or anything like that. We are looking for people that have been in their property for some time and they have sizable equity. And here's the thing: most of the market is not looking for that. You're going to have so much less competition looking for that because everybody's looking for the pre-foreclosures and all that stuff, the hot stuff. This is not what you want to look for. We have what's called an inbound magnet. We create a funnel where homeowners with equity raise their hand and call us. This is a very straightforward process. Instead of you going out and cold calling people and spending hours on the phone or putting out signs, you are going to market to the right people, only the right people in the right areas, and they are going to raise their hand and sell you their property at a nice discount. Now, these houses, for those of you that don't know, most of the houses we buy are pretty houses in average neighborhoods, and they often create the fastest 5-day paydays. The reason being is because there are people that are willing to sell and are motivated to sell for all kinds of reasons that you cannot quantify. So, in other words, I'll give you some examples. A real estate investor that ran out of money to do a rehab, they are motivated to sell because that property is just a debt and they want to get out of it. You can get a great deal there. A person that got relocated for their job and now their job is moving them to Texas and they used to live in Indiana, and you can do a great deal with them because they don't want to have two properties in the same area, or two properties. They just want to sell that one and get rid of it quickly while they go relocate. Or what about someone who inherits a house and that house is theirs now, but they live in another state and they never wanted the house. They don't feel like going back to sell it. They just want to get rid of the house. This is a very strong strategy that works a lot for sellers to actually talk to you. And there's a ton of other situations. Landlords that don't want to be landlords anymore. People that bought a property to fix it up and they're just out of money, or they're just tired of it, or the contractor messed up. All of these situations are things that do not show up in the traditional way of looking for houses, and it will allow you to make more money. Are you all following this? Is this making sense to you? Let me know in the chat if this is making sense so far. I'll keep going. I want to make sure you get this. I'm going to open it up for questions if anybody has questions at the end. So, engineering the yes over the phone. How do we get people to a yes, to say yes without going to see the house? We do not visit houses and sit at the kitchen table for hours talking to sellers. That is unnecessary. We have streamlined this process down to where it is the least amount of work, and you're doing the stuff that only makes you profit, not the things that waste time. Your best negotiation is simply a conversation with questions. When you talk to a seller, talking to them and asking them some questions and getting them to talking is going to be your absolute best negotiation. And we're going to show you how to do that. We're going to show you the 5 questions that you must ask every single seller. Then we're going to show you how to use that information to ask them the next set of questions, and you're going to get them to tell you what they want for the property. You're going to use transaction logic to let the seller tell you the number that makes sense for the deal. Yes, you are not going to offer them initially. They are going to tell you what they want initially because you have no idea, and more than likely their number could be better than what you are offering. That happened to me several times. And you're going to use their logic and their information to get them to tell you their number. And this is going to weed out the tire kickers. So you only spend time on high probability closings. You are not going to waste time talking to a bunch of people that really cannot help you. Okay. You are here to get a check. Excuse me. You are here to get a check. You are not here to babysit sellers. You're not here to go look at houses and see how nice they are. You are here to get a check. Let's do the work that actually gets us the check. Next up is financing. 100% financing for professionals. So when you finance a deal, we're going to show you how to use exposure limit loans that approve you for the entire year up front. These loans are going to, you apply once. They are not going to look at your income. They're not going to look at your credit for the most part. They are looking at the deal. These are not hard money. These are what's called exposure limit loans, and they are very good for what we need to do. We're going to show you how to use the 2-week down payment recovery process. This is a technique that we use to get any capital that you come off of back into your bank account. So when you put a down payment down on a house, you will have that money back in your account within 2 weeks, and you will still own the property and be able to sell it and do everything you need to do. And we have that process for you. Lenders love our model, the model of buying properties that have equity because it's low risk for them. Most people buy properties and they're buying it at market value, and then they're going to fix it up and do sweat equity and sell the property for sweat equity or profit. What we are doing is buying and negotiating and then getting the property below market value. So a lender is protected. If you buy a house that's worth $100,000 today and you only paid $60,000 and the lender only had to loan you $60,000 on a house that's worth 100 that they can verify, that is very low risk to them. And I'm just using those numbers as an example, but that shows that it's low risk to them compared to them loaning you $100,000 on a house that's worth $100,000 today, then loaning you another $30,000 to fix it up in hopes that it will be worth $200,000. That's a lot more risky for them. The way we do it, they love us and they're more likely to give you the money with less problems. Okay. You're going to be able to leverage your credit and capital as a strategic tool, not a personal risk. So this is something that you're not going to even, sometimes you won't even, some of the process that we use, you won't even have to put down a down payment on the property. You'll just be able to buy it, and we'll show you how to use the lender, and they'll do 100% financing when it makes sense. And that way you're not personally at risk. Again, we are here to get the check, not the keys. We do want to own the property, but we want to own it strictly for the purpose of getting the check. We have a 48-day rule. Our active clients average less than 50 days in a deal, and they're able to do more than one deal at a time. So even in a down market and an up market, it really doesn't matter. When the market is really hot, we probably average 10 days or 15 days in a deal. When the market is cooled off, we're about 48 days in and out of a deal. That's from the day we buy it to the day we're out of the property and we've got a check. Why we don't do major rehabs? Because they take time, and you got to go through contractors, and you've got the hidden wall surprises. Has anybody here ever rehabbed a property? If you have, then you probably know about the hidden wall surprises. Hidden wall surprises are when you open up a wall and they tell you that because you opened up the wall, you now have to handle this, replacing this plumbing or whatever it is. We don't get into all of that. We don't buy properties that usually need major rehab. And even if they do need a lot of rehab, we buy them at a big enough discount that we sell them to somebody that's willing to do the work. We are not fixing up properties. And I don't expect you to fix up properties learning this process. The no tenant policy. We do not keep tenants in property. Every once in a while, we will get a property that has a tenant in it. That does not mean we are going to fix it up or we're going to deal with the tenant. We have a policy where our tenants have an option that we inherit. They can either buy the property or they have to move. We do not get midnight toilet calls. We don't have unpaid rent drama. We do not go through those things. It's an easier process. We stick with what gets us the check. This allows us to sell for 5 and sometimes 6-figure profits by providing fair market pricing to retail and investor buyers. So I don't care how many of you all have had to keep a buyer's list or a list of investors that would buy your property. We don't do that. We don't keep a buyer's list. We don't have to look at who. Why would I ever want to limit who can buy my property? I want every person that can possibly buy my property to be able to have the right to buy it. So we sell to any and everybody, and that's what allows us to sell quicker. All right. So give you a couple of examples. This is the $134,000 newbie home run. This is Yolanda. Yolanda was a busy government professional in a tough market. She was in the DC market. She had never done a deal. She actually had a real estate license, but she had never done a deal on her own or done a real estate deal where she had, made money other than a commission. She learned our process and she used what I call motivated equity logic to identify 3 units from one landlord. It was a landlord in the area. He was tired of these 3 properties. He wanted out. She used our process of finding him, then negotiating with him, and then financing the deal. And she closed her first transaction with a 6 figure profit in under 4 months. So it took her, she had 3 properties in this deal. So it took her a little bit longer, but she was able to do all 3 of these properties. She walked away with $134,000 and she did that in under 4 months, literally starting from never doing a real estate deal on her own. And she was able to generate $134,000. The big shift for her was proving to herself and her family that the system worked in the real world. Her son bought a rental property around the time she started working with us. And while he was still fixing up the property and trying to attract tenants, she had already closed and done $134,000 profit on her first deal. And Yolanda continues to do deals to this day. So that's just one example. Scaling from side hustle to 7 figure vision. So this is Kyra. Let me show you Kyra. Kyra is a professional who cleared $50,000 on her first deal while working her day job. Kyra is a hairdresser. She worked her day job and she was able to clear a deal and make a $50,000 profit. And she was ecstatic. This is Sheila. Sheila is a seasoned real estate investor who had her license and realized her license was a cage. It was holding her back from doing transactions. And she switched to doing real estate transactions and operating the way we work. And she did a deal where she had a $175,000 equity spread on that deal. So she had a $175,000 equity spread. Both of these people and Yolanda from earlier used our quick turn training and accountability to stay on track. Sheila especially, she struggled with staying on track with some of her deals because Sheila had a heart of giving and she always wanted to feel that she was doing the best for everybody involved. And she struggled a little bit, but we kept with her and kept her accountable, and she made a profitable deal out of her things. The aha moment for a lot of these students are realizing that one quick turn deal out earns a year of commissions or salaries. It does not take a lot of deals to make what you make in a year. Now, some people might make high salaries. You might make $150,000, $200,000 a year. That still is not a lot of deals. With what we do, that can be anywhere from 2 to about 4 deals in a year. So it's not a major amount of time to be successful and get these kind of numbers with doing the quick turn process. Your 7 figure legacy is in your backyard. Now, let me explain this because this is important. A lot of people, they question, do I need to invest nationwide to be successful? Do I need to be all over the country? I'm in Texas. Do I need to invest in Detroit and New York and everything else? My belief is that every market has high-end, mid-market, and workforce housing within 50 miles. So wherever you are at, unless you're in some of the highest places in the country, like maybe California, and even then you can just choose a different market, you can invest around your house, meaning that you can get in your car and you can invest in any properties and you should be able to drive there in about 20 minutes for most properties that you invest in. But we don't have to go see properties, but I'm saying you would have that option. Building a centralized A team. That's an attorney, title, realtor that stays with you. You don't have to go all over the place and build new teams every time you go into a new market. When you invest all over the country, you got to have people all over the country. When you are in one condensed market, you can work with the same attorney, title company, realtor, everybody that you need to be successful, and we'll show you how to set those arrangements up and be successful with one small team. And then you maintain local control and market expertise without the travel stress. If you have a problem at a property, you just hop in your car and you've got to go over there. It doesn't happen often, but if you have a problem, you can get there easily. You don't have to set up a flight and a hotel and go all the way across the country for a deal where you're only making $30,000. So quick term builds the income and commercial builds the wealth. So let me touch on this about commercial. Are you all following this? Again, I'm making sure you all are getting this. Is everybody paying attention? Using single family turns, and I call them turns because you're going to buy them and turn around and sell them to generate the large lump sums needed for retirement. Some people are closer to retirement or they're trying to build up for retirement. This will allow you to do that. And what you can do is you can graduate moving from houses into bigger assets like mobile home parks. That's what we do. We do mobile home parks, strip malls, and self storage units. The tax shield is another bonus to this because commercial investing allows you to defer or eliminate capital gains taxes that you would normally have to pay. So, how would you like to make investments, make more money, and then still be able to defer or eliminate the taxes because of how you spend the money and what you put it into? And you can build some cash flows with commercial, which is great. What you will end up with is creating two businesses, one for immediate cash, buying and selling houses, and then one for permanent generational wealth. You can build a large portfolio of commercial property following this process. You can sell the single family business if you choose to, not the houses, sell the actual business because you can show, hey, over the last 5 or 10 years, I've made this much money buying and selling single family houses. Sell that process and that business to someone, and you keep the commercial, and that's your generational wealth that you can pass down. So don't leave your kids a job, leave them a system. I am really big on this because I don't want to leave my kids where there's nothing that they have to gain from my life. And this business require this a business. You don't want to have a business that requires your 24/7 hustle. That's just a high paying job. So wholesaling, where you constantly have to be on, being a landlord, things like that, you're going to constantly have to be on. A lot of people a few years ago talked to me about Airbnb and how Airbnb was the big deal and it was going to replace everything. And now they're saying how Airbnb is barely break even and they haven't made a lot of money and it takes a lot of work. You do not want something that's a high paying job. The legacy plan, building a transaction factory, a boring business like this that your children can actually manage and they actually enjoy because they'll still have the freedom to go out and live life, but they can learn this business with you. Ensuring the first and only successful person in the family, which hopefully is you, isn't the last. That's what we really want to make sure. We want to make sure we're not the one that made it, and then our children are not in position to make it as well. And hopefully they can follow on our business that we've grown, because that's how generational wealth is. You give your kids the business and the portfolio and the assets that you've accumulated. We're going to teach the next generation to be owners and architects, not just earners. Nothing wrong with being an earner at all. And I'm sure all of you all know that. But at the same time, you want to build your children to be in a better position than you. And this is a way to foundationally build that within your children without having to take on major risk or leave your high paying job initially until you know that this is what you want to do. So, what is the cost? And there are two costs to every decision that I always say. And the first cost is the visible cost of investment in the quick term mastery program, which is our programs. That ranges depending on the different levels that we choose. It's anywhere from a couple of thousand to several tens of thousands of dollars to work with us, but they're all the same program. It's just a matter of the amount of help that you need. But the more important cost is the invisible cost of staying in the 8 to 5 prison for another 5 to 10 years. If you don't make any moves, what's the possibility? Either AI is coming for your job, or robots are coming for your job, or you're going to leave and you had a good paycheck, but you have not accumulated wealth. If you don't accumulate wealth, there is nothing to help you later on that gives you the freedom that you want to live a better life. The math of lost equity, missing out on whatever amount of potential profit every month that you wait, because it could be 30, 40, $50,000, what you could be doing in a single deal every month. Or let's say you do a deal every 2 months and you make 50,000, so you're missing out on $25,000 of potential profit every month. You decide that number based on how much and how much work you want to do and how far you want to go with this. Okay? There's also the mental toll of knowing you have the resources but lacking the machine. There's nothing more frustrating than knowing you have the ability and the resources. You just don't have the process that you need to be successful with this. Okay? That can be frustrating. So let's talk about, is your capital ready for deployment? We prioritize professionals with the resources. You might have a HELOC, a 401k, savings, and you're ready to move. You have actual capital that you can access and you're ready to move. This is not really for looky-loos. So it's for, if you're those people that are not really ready to move, but they're just kind of looking around, this probably isn't for you. It's for those who are ready to follow a step-by-step blueprint and get all the pieces laid out for them. This is direct access to myself, Art, and Aisha to ensure your factory is built correctly. We have every vision, we have every reason to help you be successful because, like I said, we want you to ultimately invest with us in commercial, and we have to get you to the single family business first. And there are only 3 spots available this month to maintain high touch support and accountability. We open this up every month and we do a couple of spots unless we're overloaded because we actually work with our students. If you talk to any of our students, they will tell you that we are working with them ongoing to help them build this business. Let's talk a little bit about your customized legacy roadmap. We're going to do, when you talk to us, we're going to do an audit of your specific capital and equity situation. Do you have what you need to build this business? And it's a real conversation because if you do have it, then we'll show you what the next steps are. If you don't have it, that's fine. We can give you some advice on getting there so you can get into a position quickly. We're going to do a professional analysis of your local 50-mile market potential, depending on where you're at. I like to tell people as straightforward as I can before we get started. If this is where you want to go, then you need to look at your local market and let's actually sit down and run some numbers and see what your local market looks like and if it's someplace you should invest. You need a timeline based on your specific income replacement goals. What does it look like to replace your income if that's what your goal is? Does it look like 100,000, 200,000, $300,000? What does that look like? And we can come up with a realistic game plan of what that timeline should look like so you can know realistically. I don't want to tell you that you'll have $250,000 in 2 weeks because that's not the case. I would rather tell you a realistic setup, layout of this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like you growing so you can know what you're looking at. And determining if the factory model aligns with your 12-month vision. This is all something you can do in a 12-month period. Does it align with where you want to be in 12 months? And we'll do that all on a call. Stop being the engine for your family's wealth and become the architect. You have the skills and the credit. You just need the process. And if that's the case, we can help you with that. Don't let your paper millionaire status become your permanent reality. I have people that are what I call paper millionaires, where they have a ton of value, but they don't actually have anything that's generating cash flow other than themselves. And that's very dangerous. Your first check is waiting inside the transaction engineering logic and building the quick turn process. That is, it does not start until you start. And so we'll help you get started. I'm going to leave a link in the chat and you can book a strategy call. You fill out a quick, this is the link in the chat. You can click on it and fill out a quick form and it will tell you where you should go with us. And let's engineer your freedom. Final thoughts on the boring factory model. This business is not meant to be sexy and exciting. It is meant to be boring and profitable. I don't know if you want sexy and exciting and no money or you want boring and profitable, but I much rather prefer boring and profitable. Opening the floor for questions from professionals like you. So does anyone have questions about anything I've discussed, our process, or anything that I've mentioned? I'll be happy to answer it. Remember, the goal is to get the check, not to own a bunch of doors and build the legacy. We can get to the doors or get to the ownership of stuff when we get into commercial. All right. I'm going to open it up now. Does anybody have any questions for me before we end the call? I always like to kind of open up for questions. One of the biggest questions that comes up, well, if you do have a question, simply raise your hand or, type it in the chat and I'll be happy to answer it. One of the questions that comes up most often is how do we find properties? We teach one specific process to find properties, and that is with direct mail. In my opinion, direct mail is still the best way. I know people do Facebook ads and all kinds of crazy stuff, but direct mail, and we don't just send out direct mail to anybody and everybody. We send it out to people in a certain area, in certain zip codes that you will figure out. We'll show you how to run the numbers, and then you will send mail to them. Not everybody in the zip code, specific sellers in the zip code. So it's very affordable, but it will allow you to touch those people, and then they will call you. Every time your phone rings, it will be somebody that has sizable equity, that's in an area that people are looking to buy in, that the property is in decent condition, and they're reaching out to you because you reached out to them initially with marketing. And that is a big thing. And it allows you to live your life. Once you get your business set up, you are not going to have to spend hours and hours and your time when you're not working on this. You are going to answer the phone when people call or return the call when people call, and you will be able to put deals together and do 5- and 6-figure business doing just that, answering phones and answering a few calls. Okay, does that make sense? The other question people ask is, how do we finance deals? So one of the other questions people ask is, what's do I have to have excellent credit? You don't have to have excellent credit, but you should have decent credit. You should have your credit should not be in the tank. So I usually tell people 600 or above, usually you're okay, in okay shape. Of course, if it's higher, that's beneficial. The lenders are not looking at your credit too hard that we use. They do want to see a decent credit, but they're not going to look at your credit too hard. They're more looking at your deal. And we're going to show you how to make sure you bring the right deals to the lender so you don't put yourself in a bad position. We have three ways that we finance all of our deals. The first way is a commercial line of credit. That's the exposure limit loan I talked about earlier. The second way is we have a lender that does 100% financing, and they have very reasonable rates. They're not hard money, but they do very reasonable rates. And then the third one is when it makes sense, we will do owner financing on a property, short-term owner financing. And we've got a very slick way that we do that, and it makes really good sense. And when the seller agrees, we typically get the house with 0% interest and no payments for the life of the time we have the house. So if that makes sense. So that doesn't work on every situation, but when it does work, it's very nice. Okay. Any questions for me on any of this? Are you all asleep or paying attention, or did you all have questions about this process and what it looks like? This process is very straightforward and it's profitable. That's the biggest thing with me. I don't like all these fast money kind of where you can do this thing without any, I don't want to say any risk because everything has risk, but when you can do these kind of deals or like wholesaling and stuff, and you're trying to do something where you're not being straightforward with everybody, it's a very straightforward process that we do. Okay. All right. So I put the link in the chat to join us for a call. If you have questions, then I will be available. I'm going to send everybody a replay of this training tomorrow. So if you didn't catch it or you didn't get all of it, you will get a replay tomorrow and we'll get everybody a copy. And if you want to join the set up a call, you can click on the link in the replay. You'll be able to click on the link here and you can fill out a quick questionnaire and then we can get you on a call. And the call will be with me or Aisha. Will be one of the people talking to you because we do these calls because we don't let everybody into the program. We want to get people in that have the potential of going into commercial with us because that's our ultimate goal. Okay. All right, guys. I hope you have enjoyed this. I hope you've gotten something from it. I hope it's made sense to you. If you have any other questions, like I said, you'll be able to ask them on the replay. You'll be able to put in questions in the replay. Otherwise, I will talk to you guys later. Have a great week. As always, happy hunting. Bye-bye.